Welcome to the Leather Lounge, a weekly show recorded live every Tuesday where we explore the latest innovations in the Bitcoin ecosystem. From DeFi and dApps to digital art, we bring you in-depth conversations with developers, artists, and community leaders who are shaping the future. Whether you're here to learn about cutting-edge projects or to deepen your understanding of blockchain basics and decentralization, Leather is your go-to source for all things Bitcoin. Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Hello and welcome back to the Leather Lounge. I'm your host, Sean Longstreet. Today's guest is Chris Cieno, founder of the Bitcoin Stewardship Initiative, a visionary project aiming to transform digital scarcity into ecological abundance. With plans to launch the Orange Peace Bond, a first-of-its-kind Bitcoin-backed regenerative investment instrument, Chris is on a mission to show that Satoshi's legacy can do more than offer financial freedom. It can help heal the planet. It's a grand vision, and the journey getting here is just as powerful and interesting. Chris was a gifted kid with high test scores who joined the U.S. Air Force and served as a nuclear electrician's mate. 9 years in, he experienced a profound moral awakening, and wrestling with the implications of his work, he applied for conscientious objector status, a decision that took over 2 years, over 120 pages of written testimony, and a deep personal conviction. He was ultimately honorably discharged, and that turning point led Chris to regenerative agriculture and environmental stewardship, and then eventually to Bitcoin, which he now sees as the key to unlocking scalable, decentralized funding for ecological restoration. In this episode, we're going to dive into the origin and goals of the Bitcoin Stewardship Initiative, why ESG models are broken and how Bitcoin offers a fix, the design of the Orange Peace Bond and how it aligns capital with ecology, and challenges facing the current environmental movement and how regenerative finance reframes the path going forward. It's going to be a great show. Chris, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that great intro, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to start spreading the message.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for context, we had Daniel Batten on a few weeks ago, and at the end of the show, I said, if there's anyone that you can recommend for the show, anyone who needs, needs a little boost, who's doing something innovative, please send him my way. And you were top of mind. So that's how we got connected. So this is going to be a good kind of addendum to several of the shows we've had, including with Daniel Batten, but also Troy Cross as well. So I think there's going to be some great overlap. So, all right, man. Well, let me stop blabbing here and give you the mic. I'd love to start with, because I teased kind of your background, but let's jump into the context. Tell us about your background, starting in the Air Force, and give us some, your journey here to Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to start with, man, some big shoes to fill, following up Troy Cross and Daniel Batten. They are absolutely massive people in this space, especially when it comes to things that Bitcoin can provide outside of simply value, which is incredible. And so I'll just wanted to start with that. But I will say I grew up in Louisiana and right outside of New Orleans, and joined the Air Force at 17. Was a class clown in school and tested well, like you said. And so I was able to actually get a career as a nuclear weapons technician in the United States Air Force, and had a lot of fun. Started out 5 years in Minot, North Dakota, 3 years in the Netherlands, and then 2 years over in Turkey, which was incredible to get out and kind of view the world. And introduced me to a whole bunch of different people that I really think in the grand scheme ended up helping me to shape my vision on why Bitcoin's so important, because everyone everywhere I went is facing the same type of problem, and that being a devaluing currency. And so in some places worse than others, but it was something to see that the whole world, 8 billion people, are actually looking for the solution, which I believe Bitcoin can provide.
Was your time in Turkey that pivotal moment where you started witnessing what inflation can look like, what the ripple effects are?
Genuinely, because I mean, those poor people, they work so hard, very incredible people. And yet it's just, you were sitting there watching the value of the lira erode and erode and erode. And so, unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't fully aware of what the monetary systems are that are in play, the bigger scheme. But one of the beautiful things Bitcoin allows you to do is to get a big understanding about the macro world, because there's so many rabbit holes that you end up going down when you're starting to first go and chase that white rabbit, if you will, which Satoshi released to the world.
Nice. So I don't know how much you want to go into your transition out of the Air Force and into regenerative agriculture, but
Sure.
let's talk about that piece as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, I was a nuclear weapons technician for 10 years, and it's a very serious job, and it's one that's needed to be executed at a high level. And as you said, I struggled with it at one point because I really felt I had more in common with the people on the other side of my job being executed than I did really at the very top. And so when I got out, I wanted to do something completely different. And I wanted to find something that I realized I could, from a class clown to playing with the world's strongest weapon systems, I can do a whole bunch. And I'm a very capable individual, as I believe we all are. And so that kind of led me down a path of, well, what's different? What can I do? What do I enjoy? And I really wanted to learn about growing food. And so I went to Costa Rica and started studying permaculture for a couple of months, and took a year after that. And it's called WOOFing, Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, where you do work stays at different farms. And I wanted to get an idea of what it was to do these different types of agriculture, because I had no clue on how to actually take a seed, put it into the ground, and grow anything. And it was about three-quarters of my way through that, I came across the book by Mark Shepard called Restoration Agriculture. And that just, there was a light bulb moment on how we can take degraded land, we can manage the water that falls from the sky, whether as snow or as rain, and we can plant perennial food systems on top of it. So it's a way to redesign agriculture in nature's image. And it's just, the possibilities were endless. And so I found a new mission, if you will, and a new purpose, which is going and trying to heal ecosystems.
What year was that when you read his book?
It was in 2000, into 2016, and I went to my first, it was a weekend watershed restoration course. So it was a 2 day event that he put on in New Paris, Ohio at the beginning of 2017. And so after that weekend, I was absolutely hooked. My wife, now girlfriend at the time, and I were up there. And I told Mark, I was like, look, I'll do whatever it takes. You don't have to pay me. I just want to start learning from you. And
Mhm.
so I just started volunteering and follow him around, as like all the opportunities he would give me, I would jump on them. And it's been like that ever since. And so I've been very fortunate to do a ton of different installations with him, a ton of different plantings, and man, found, like I said, a whole new purpose. And so it's been incredible.
Okay, so now you've got this expertise on regenerative agriculture. I want to know more about that. What was the day to day like? I mean, were you working with your hands? Were you overseeing the planning and execution of it? I'm curious about some of the projects that you worked on.
Sure. Yeah, no. Unfortunately, at the very beginning, it was just a whole bunch of just doing whatever he needed. And so it's going, run and hold laser levels, it's marking out land. And so he would be taking in the actual measurements, and you just be placing small flags. That way, people can come with bulldozers later on to cut in the lines that we need to put in the water management system. It's really it was kind of fun, because I went from being an expert in my field as a weapons troop to now going and being, I mean, completely a novice to something again. And so it was a very humbling thing, because you feel if you can maintain weapons of that nature, you should be able to do anything. But it's like anything, you have to really start to focus, and you have to put in the time and the effort into learning it. And so the first bit was very slow, and it was just cleaning the tools at the end of the day. It was making sure everything was ready so it operated smoothly. And then as time went on, it's being able to start making some decisions and making some calls with them, working through, all right, well, if we put a terrace here, where will that water end up going? And he would slowly bring you and incorporate you into more of the design side of things. And so that's kind of where it is now. Is I still love going out there and working with some of the people from the RAD team and helping them on different projects. One of the biggest that I remember that we did, not necessarily biggest, but the funnest, was we had four different farms in upstate New York at one time, and so we would go from one farm to the next to the next, and it was about a week and a half, 2 week project, but we probably planted close to 4 to 500,000 trees in that 2 week time. And I mean, it was just, it's incredible because it's been probably 5 years now since that project. And I know if I were to go back, that it's just an ecosystem that's getting healthier, getting more resilient, and it's getting better with time. And that's where we can design nature to absolutely thrive. And that's such an incredible thought.
Yeah. So now how did you connect this with Bitcoin?
Gradually, for sure, because it took a while. I felt there was something here. I was very fortunate to get into Bitcoin early because of my older brother. And so, just like everybody, though, when I first got into Bitcoin, I went into other projects, and no lesson like a bought lesson, which you realize quickly, just buy in, putting it into cold storage and just sitting there is the easiest thing to do. But I was going out to these different projects, and I would meet these incredible farmers or landowners, and I would get to meet, like, have dinner with their families, and they were all the same thing we were discussing earlier. Like, everyone's talking about prices going up, things getting more expensive, but no one's actually connecting the dots here. And so, while I was learning about ecological restoration with Mark, it was also taking in as much content as I could from Andreas Antonopoulos and some of the real early Bitcoin influencers, if you will. And I was starting to realize and grow my conviction in Bitcoin. Well, we can save value over here, and the time preference is a little bit different. Like, it takes it a little bit longer, but if you buy and hold, no one's in the red after 4 years. What's going on here? And so eventually I realized that through Bitcoin, we can actually start to be able to offer these types of services by using Bitcoin as a monetary tool, as a savings technology. And we can actually use its ability to retain value over time to help fund these different projects.
So then, when did you take the leap to start the Bitcoin Stewardship Initiative?
So that's a more recent, I'd say I've been having some type of thought on it for about 4 years now, that I knew there was something I wanted to mix between these two, and that we had something very powerful in the restoration side of things. And I had something very powerful in the finance side over here. And so it was about a year ago where I had my true light bulb moment of what it is that I can do and how I can create some type of investment opportunity backed by Bitcoin in order to go and offer the types of services that I've been falling in love with and finding a new meaning through in the ecological restoration world. And that was in part to listening to some podcasts with CJ Constantinos of the People's Reserve and his ability to speak eloquently on the Bitcoin bonds.
Hmm.
And that's where I was like, oh, hold on, there's something magic right here in that. And so
Yep.
that was,
Yeah, I see you running parallel with a lot of the other Bitcoin bond talk right now. Um, before we, I want to take one step back because I want to understand what the kind of current state of, ecological restoration is. How is it funded? Because in my mind, unless this is something that Daniel Batten and I talked about as well, that if people want to do it, they might be willing to volunteer their time or to give their money because it's a passion thing. But you're so hamstrung by that. You really don't have, if you don't have the capital there, there's not going to be a lot of incentive. So you're really limited to how much impact you can really have. So minus the Bitcoin, minus like the potential of what Bitcoin can do in the ecological restoration space, what is it like? What's the funding models? How does it?
and
Yeah, what's the funding model and what's the current state?
yeah, no, you're very spot on. Is A lot of the work here, it's done by people that are passionate for it because unfortunately one of the downsides of fiat is the time preference, and so it's losing its value faster and faster. And so unfortunately that means that the need for return on investments in these areas is it's matched to that. It's very high time preference, it's quick turnovers, and they need it because that money's eroding. And so when you look at the current state of ESG investing, unfortunately, it's not matched with the speed at which ecosystems actually repair themselves. And so it's very extractive, it's very greenwashed, unfortunately, in this space. And so there's still people doing incredible work. That it's not to downplay that part of it at all. There's people that are doing wonderful things, but a lot of the projects that I think people would say is very beneficial for the eco, like the ecology, and also for the local communities, that's all done through like philanthropic adventures, and it's people actually just donating their resources to go out and do it. And so it's very unfortunate though, because we all rely on the environment. We all rely on the birds flying overhead and for the pollination to occur. And so it's unfortunate just that it's running in this way, but it is. And so the majority of the good work, air quotes, that we would say, it's all done through philanthropy, and it's just hoping that people every year can give more and more and more. And so it's not sustainable by any means. And so this is where I'm very excited, because I think by being able to utilize Bitcoin as a savings technology, we have a way to kind of change the way that these donations slash investments are now done.
Okay, so let's dive into that now. So, how does the bond work? What do people gain? Like, what's the upside for them?
Mhm.
How is it safe? Obviously, like it's a win-win all of a sudden because yes, they like the concept of ecological restoration and they like the number go up in the guaranteed bond. So, uh, help us understand how it works.
Sure. And so we're currently in the talks right now to actually launch the Bitcoin Orange Peace Bond through the People's Reserve. And so we're hoping to finalize that in about a month and then go live with the actual bond come the holiday season. And so there's a couple different ways it could end up looking, but the gist and the general of it would be, let's say we raise $5 million. We're going to be able to take that $5 million. We're going to write the bond in a way that it matches the ecological system repair. And so it's going to be a 7 year to a 10-year bond. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be able to offer people 8% compounded interest if they would like, or if they're willing to lock it up for the entire time, not pull any interest out, do a 10% return, compound annual, and then also pay that out directly in Bitcoin at the end of it. So we're trying to incentivize people to stay into the bond and allow us to let that sit and mature as long as possible. So with that money that we raise, we'll say it's $5 million in this case, we're going to go out, we're going to partner with landowners, with nonprofits, with government agencies, whoever it is that's doing solid ecological restoration type work. So watershed restoration, living shorelines, regenerative agriculture farm installs. And we're going to go and we're going to offer them a discount. We're going to say thank you very much for doing something that we see as a benefit to the world. And so we would like to offer you a discount. We're going to give that to the landowner and say, go ahead, give us 80% of the total cost. We'll pay out the full 100. We're going to take that 80%. We're going to directly put that into Bitcoin and put it in our treasury. And then as Bitcoin continues to grow at its current compounded annual growth, then as it comes time to paying everybody back, we can pay back the investors. And then we can also still have money left over to then go skip that first part, which is where we absolutely have to raise money to do more projects. And now we can take that growth in our treasury and use that to start funding ecological projects as well.
Wow, that's cool. So I imagine that you are really bringing a couple factors to the table. One, like you're an expert, so you know how to prioritize and choose the right uh, recipients of the funds, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about selecting which projects you want to work on, which which projects and what land to work on?
Yeah, and so One of my co-founder, Michael Lynn, he's a 30-year firefighter. He's been doing ecological restoration work for about 15 years, 5 different continents, and he's been a part of some very, very big projects. And so I brought him on and met him in Oregon doing ecological restoration work actually. And he's the one that's very intimate in the details about how we actually go about selecting projects. He has a ton of different KPIs, key performance indicators that we use, and we're choosing for ecological health, not just monocultured production. And so, a ton of the ESG money that gets put or invested goes towards. They'll say, "Oh, we planted 100,000 trees," but it's all palm oil plantations, and it's just big monocultured, which nice, yeah, you're pulling carbon, but you're also not providing ecosystem services the way that a forest would. And so we choose products or projects, I should say, that are ecologically sound. They have to be diverse. They uh, have to manage water, and they have to answer multiple layers of ecological value and not just one. And so we get to be selective with who we partner with, which is nice. But I also think we get to also be incentive in the sense that everybody would like the discount. And so if your project, maybe you were only going to do it one way, well, if you do it over here and you can meet these needs, well, now we can offer that discount. And so really it's a win-win, I feel, for everybody. We get to ensure that it's not greenwashed, and then we can track all of this as well. And so
So you're also bringing in an element of quality and helping people take the next level. Maybe they're not even considering what a the full-on ecological restoration should look like. Break that down for us. Tell us, either give us an example of a previous project that is kind of like ideal and perfectly executed, or just make up the ideal situation. What is it
yeah.
like before, and what is it like post restoration?
Man, this is kind of fun because whenever I start thinking about the ecological restoration, especially in the potential and designing these ecosystems, the way Mark's kind of opened up my eyes to being able to see, what's really fun with it is I loved Willy Wonka growing up, and I thought it was so incredible to walk into this area where everything's edible, and the schnozberries are schnozberries, and that's exactly what we get to design, is a place where abundance is everywhere. And it's just you can't go to Mark's farm in Viola, Wisconsin and take more than a couple of steps without having some type of edible thing hit you in the face, or you're stepping on mushrooms that are growing everywhere. And so what does a typical place for us look like? Is it looks rough. We're going after projects and properties that look very barren, look abused, and we're going to sit there and we're going to start designing it, laying it out in order to retain as much water as possible. And then we're going to start planning out food systems that get better over time. And so we, like, one of the projects we did was, it's the old dairy farm, beautiful in the mountains, in the Catskill Mountains. And we went, it was just open fields. It was on the side of hills. It was gorgeous. But now, if you go there, you go and you would see a ton of water because we have a couple of different ponds. And so its ability to retain water is immense. Then you sit there and you're starting to watch a forest grow into place. And so it ends up looking just like a big old forest. But as you walk through it, there's spacing between rows of trees, and you can sit there and enjoy the shade. You can plant wildflowers if you want to see, the local pollinators go wild. You can grow asparagus in between your rows, or corn, or whatever you would like. But the base layer is now, it's ecologically sound and secure. And so,
Yeah, I think that's worth understanding. I got two questions in my line. Let me ask you about a book called Fiat Foods. Did you read that?
I've listened to him on Safedin's podcast, but I haven't read it
Yeah.
yet.
I'm curious, when you're talking about designing these ecological spaces to have more edible food, I'm just thinking about how many problems that can solve. And then there's the diversity piece as well. The diversity is everything when it comes to just the health of an ecosystem. We want as many different varieties of insects and birds. And in these monocrop, um, in monocrops, you know, they are so susceptible to, one disease going and wiping out an entire crop.
100%.
So, yeah, I'm curious about, the projects that you're choosing. Is it like just private land that wants to earn more and produce more with their property? Is it a community space? Is it, I'm just trying to understand like the gamut of spaces that you have the potential to improve.
All of the above, I feel. And
Yeah.
so some of it is like we're at the very beginning stages right now of a project over in Panama, which it's a 3 acre project, and it's currently in it's in pineapple production. And so the whole thing is just pineapple production, which that's them choosing for production. And so what we're going to do there is we're still going to have them producing pineapples, but they're going to start bringing in other forms of food and other perennial food producing plants, because the idea here is, like you said, if one thing comes in and wipes it out, where there goes everything for you. Whereas when you do have that resilience and variety, if something were to come in, a fungus or some type of blight, it might take out the hazelnuts for a year, but now you still have chestnuts, pine nuts, you still have your different berries, you have, I mean, apples, grapes, whatever it is that grows natively in your area, that's the thing that you can fall back on. And so you are so much more resilient and not susceptible to the swings of something coming through like that. And so who can we help? It's really, it's everybody and all of the above. And so there's people that we've done this work for that are private landowners that own massive swaths. We've done projects over in California and wine country. We've done projects. One of the projects that Mark's worked on, which is incredible, is he developed wildlife corridors for the Jane Goodall Institute over in Tanzania. And so it
Wow.
wasn't food production at all. It's solely for the chimpanzees going back and forth. And I mean, it's all of it really applies. And that's what's fun with it is everywhere has native flora, and we can, those flora produce food, fuels, medicines, and fibers. And all of those can be laid out into a design that maximizes water's usage, and it's incredible. Like I said, it's literally, it's the Willy Wonka design where you can land of pure imagination, let your brain go wild, and you get to play with
That's fun.
it.
Before I jump to the bonds question, what about things like solar? Are you incorporating that and even mining into some of these spaces?
So we haven't directly, but there are some people that are doing some really fun projects around it, and it's something that I would like to actually reach out and see if there is a way that we can help them, because the same type of thing definitely applies. You're stacking functions there. And so people's ability to incorporate that makes perfect sense. And when you, especially when you start looking at the mining side of things, you can, if you're in cold climates, you can take that heat. And we talked to some people that are over in Wyoming, and they're using the heat from their miners. It's a local electric cooperative of farmers, and they're using the heat to extend their growing season with the greenhouses. They're heating up their barns with it, and there was a couple other uses that it's just the co-benefit of being able to have a system that produces a ton of heat. And it's like, man, this is so incredible when you start stacking functions with Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's so many, just like Bitcoin is so much more than just number go up technology, store of value. Its use cases, the way it can benefit. Well, so that's a good transition to go back to the bond. So you mentioned that at the end of the period, it's paid out in Bitcoin, right?
If they choose to lock it up for the entire time and not pull out their like quarterly interest payments, or
I see.
there's the ability. Yeah. But
Okay,
if they would like to be paid out quarterly, then we're going to keep it in the dollars and we'll do it that way.
I see. Do you buy in with dollars or do you have the
Yeah.
option to buy in with Bitcoin? You buy in with the dollar.
Yeah, that's one of the, I feel the beautiful things about what we're looking to do is I want people to keep their Bitcoin, give us the dollars, because that's the thing that really gets all of it done right now. And so
Yeah.
we'd love to have your Bitcoin if you want to send it over, but unfortunately, that's not something that we want to actually just go ahead and sell right now. We're trying to stack the stack so we can use that later on.
Yeah. Well, there's, all kinds of different financial instruments that Bitcoiners are keen on right now. And I know, we've been in this range right around 100K, between 100 and 110. There's a lot of OG Bitcoiners who are looking at these numbers saying, it's time to cash in. Like, it's time to change my life right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I can really see the appeal of saying, I have this chunk of money. I'm fine getting paid out in Bitcoin at the end of it, and a guaranteed 10% over what, 8 to 10 years?
Yeah, 7 to 10.
Yeah, that's great. You're still getting like a guaranteed upside without any of the volatility, and you're able to cash out and realize some, just I guess, a little bit more stability. So I can see that. When will when will this all be available?
And so we're, like I said, right now we're working with CJ Constantinos and the People's Reserve. They're about to launch July 4th for, they have a whole host of project or products that they're offering through the People's Reserve. And so we're going to go down to their headquarters in August to meet with them to start really finalizing and strategizing the release here. But we're hoping to go live with it come the holiday season. So towards November, December would be when we're actually going to be able to go live and have the offering
Wow.
with it.
I feel like we are just in this Cambrian explosion period of
I
Bitcoin
like it.
adoption right now, where yes, more people are buying it, but everyone is realizing the potential for innovation in every level. Like, let me just kind of zoom out and ask, what else is on your radar? What else are you excited about right now that Bitcoin is touching and improving?
Man, so one of the things I truly love, and you mentioned him earlier, Daniel Batten, and the work that they're doing to capture waste in this form of methane coming from landfills, which is just people's trash sitting there and buried down. It's absolutely incredible and it's so motivating. And so watching people that do things like that are trying to solve for the ecological problems around the world that are all symptoms of fiat money and losing its value. Go and spend, 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 hurry up, buy all the things you need it for your happiness. Your money's not going to hold value anyway, and then it just ends up in a landfill. And so watching projects like that to me really excite me. That gets me going. And so being in the space from 2015, I really have noticed that what you said is very true right now. We're in the financialization part of Bitcoin's history where there are a ton of different products that are about to come out, and it's going to be all these different use cases for Bitcoin, which just will slowly start to get more and more people comfortable with it, aware to it. They're going to have their, whether they want to hold Bitcoin or not, the companies they hold as stocks are going to be holding on to Bitcoin and transferring their a majority of their treasuries over to it because it only makes sense. And so we are your Cambrian explosion is a very beautiful way to put that, because the products that are coming out are incredible. The use case for Bitcoin bonds is massive, and so watching that is really awesome. I love watching the Clean Spark team over in Africa as well, and they're starting to light up parts of Africa and provide that solar energy there, which Bitcoin miners are coming in at the beginning to use, and allowing the local economies to develop and create their own use cases for electricity in ways that nothing else has ever been able to have happened before. And so it's very exciting when you can get past the FUD and actually
Mhm.
put some time into understanding the many benefits of Bitcoin outside of just store of value, which is incredible, but it's not the
Yeah,
only thing.
right. You mentioned low time preference, and I think this connects well to consumerism. And I think, and as in my lifetime, consumerism was like the core of the American economy, right? It's we get our stuff has been getting cheaper and cheaper, even though like, in fiat terms, right? Um, it's it's relatively cheaper. But if
Yeah.
you compare the price of like the things that we buy, the things that we import, compare that with the price of uh, the other things that are either stores of value, stocks, but also like resources, the cost of childcare, healthcare, uh, education, all those things have been going up astronomically, but like the
Yeah.
cost of stuff has been going down. And our economy seems to be so focused on consumerism, which has a really big negative, it can have a really bad impact on the environment because we're extracting resources and we're just like, it's a, we don't really have a reuse mindset. We have like a just use it once, dump it, it goes into a landfill, out of sight, out of mind. That turns into methane emissions, and methane is like 20 times more, um, has a 20 times greater impact on climate change compared to CO2, right?
Yeah,
So
that's horrible.
yeah, so I when I think about the low time preference and how I spend my money, I think one of the second order benefits of starting to stack sats and learning about Bitcoin is that you become more selective about how you spend your money, because it's like, well, can I buy something that's going to go up forever in value and get me more of something in the future? Or should I just like go, I don't know,
And
get that other toy, that's going to last me a little bit longer. So I think there are so many other benefits to that. People having a longer time preference, planning their future, being hopeful about the future, but also it has a benefit to the environment as well.
yeah. Yeah, it is kind of wild to see how much your for the people that I've been around that have been orange pilled, it's wild to see what happens because you would think that as people's net worth would grow, their spending habits would as well. And for maybe for people in stocks and bonds, that's really true. But a majority of the people I'm around that are now starting to grow their worth in Bitcoin, all of their spending habits are completely changed from what they were before because like you said, they don't want to just get rid of these things and they don't want to just let go of it unless it's something that's going to bring a meaningful value to their life. And so it really does change the way that you see spending. And so I think you aligned it very beautifully earlier, saying that people really do get to have hope in this. And so by their ability to hold and kind of watch their value continue to grow, they can make smarter decisions. They can eat healthier foods. They can start to do things that provide for here, not just right here. And it really does change the way people's outlooks of the world is the potential. And it is really, you want it for everybody. That's the
Mhm.
wildest thing is you just want to scream it at the top of the lungs for everyone to get into, but everyone has to put in that effort and that time to understand what it is so they can get over that fear at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bitcoiners, I think at first get like a stereotype that it's all about like buying the Lambo, right? But honestly, I have been so inspired by not only people on the show, but just like a lot of other people that I've met in this space. Because it's either maturing or people are realizing, like, oh, I got the Lambo, but I'm still not actually fulfilled. What is
Yeah.
fulfilling? And I think there's maybe another Cambrian explosion of people thinking bigger beyond just, okay, now I've like secured my financial future. Now what do I do? And then they're starting to think about, how do I benefit the community? And then on a big scale, how do I think about ecology and the environment? So that's it's super inspiring.
I appreciate it. It's my wife and I have talked about this in the past that it seems the more havings that you hold, you buy and have your money in the cold storage or your Bitcoin in cold storage, the more you do that, the more you're able to climb Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so you have your safety, your security, your shelter, and now you have your relationships. You have a job, so you're provided there. And then you really do get to start thinking bigger and you do get to start thinking, well, I can have an impact that's outside of just my direct neighborhood right here. How well, if I can, I should, I feel. So let's go for it and try. And so if it wasn't for Bitcoin, I know for a fact, like I wouldn't be thinking on the scale that I'm thinking now. But I mean, ecosystems are collapsing all around the world. You can go and Google a litany, like endless pages of seeing this happen. And the thing that being in Bitcoin, as we know, Bitcoin's already everywhere. And so the solution's already over there as well. Your money's all over the world just waiting for you. And so it's kind of incredible to be able to have these thoughts and then think that you might be able to start taking steps to actually having meaningful impact around the world. And so thank you, Satoshi, for sure, for making this possible.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it's just incredible that people can. Um, I just lost my train of thought. There was to your point about pivoting, right?
Mhm.
Because you mentioned like going from the Air Force, probably, I think a lot of people, when they go into any of the military, it's like, I'm going to put my years in and that's my career, you know?
Yeah.
But anyone who's in Bitcoin came from something else. And that experience of like being humbled, starting fresh as a beginner,
Yeah.
not a lot of people are willing to do that because it's hard. It's like hard to go back to college. It's hard to learn something new. It's humbling, right?
Oh,
But I think
100%.
that's a like a superpower that Bitcoiners have is the ability to learn something new and question things and question your own assumptions and be willing to change. And that's another reason Bitcoin gives me hope.
Yeah. No, it definitely is very humbling. And what's wild, like for instance, one of the things that I look forward to, you were asking earlier, what anything Jeff Booth does, I look forward to whatever he's going to come out with next, his next podcast rips, his next like whatever he touches is something that I get very inspired and I look forward to because you just learn so much. And if it wasn't for Bitcoin, I've noticed that one of the other things that's very similar to what you're saying. If it wasn't for Bitcoin, it's very easy to feel hopeless in this world right now. And if it wasn't for me getting out and learning about ecological restoration, I would also like that gave me so much hope to go and design places that could get better with time, even though it seems all around me, things aren't really doing that in society. And so when I was able to find the hope through the ecological restoration, then the hope through Bitcoin and its ability for me to save value, store it, and send it into the future, that right there, like I just started exuding happiness all over. And I feel that I almost look at the world through this orange tinted lens, if you will, which is just full of hope and happiness. But it's very easy for the people that you're around that haven't put in the time to not be able to see any of that, even though it's right there for them as well. And so it's just really trying to connect with people and meet them where they are. And the more we can do that, the more we can sit there and live these incredible lives where it seems that we're just beaming and bebopping around. I
Hmm.
think that right there is a very strong signal for people to want to pick up on and ask, like, why, how, what are you doing? What is it that is so good for you? You know, and it's just living that fun, good life.
Yeah, that's one thing that we talked about in our pre-show chat that I want to come back to is like you can give people all of the evidence, all the podcasts, the books, the articles, but they might not get it until they see how it has benefited your life. And then they have the initiative to look at it. And I get it. It's hard to feel like it's at 100,000 right now. It's done. Like, well, you got it at 10 or 20 or 50, and now it's 2 or 5x for you and it's done, it's not going to go up anymore. But say it with me. You're so early.
Yeah, you're so early, man. And
Yeah.
everyone feels that, right? Like even when I first got into it and started buying Bitcoin at the end of 2015 into 2016, my older brother got in before me, and I thought I was late. And then as I would talk to people, and it's at now at 3 or 5 thousand, and they're just like, "Oh, I missed the boat. It's so late." And it's like, no, you haven't. You really haven't. Like this thing is just going. They're going to print endless money forever. So there is no top to Bitcoin because there's no top to fiat money, and it's such a hard thing for people to understand, though. And that's one of the things I feel very fortunate in doing what we're doing is when I would go out with Mark and I would be on these farms, people really didn't want to, or I don't know if they had the capacity or just they're nervous of it. They don't like talking Bitcoin. And so
Hmm.
it's heartbreaking though, because these are the people that don't care about Lambos. And so they're planting trees that they're never going to be able to enjoy the shade under. And so
Right.
it's like, how do I get these people to adopt Bitcoin? And it would just always frustrate me, because these are the people I do want to ride up this new store of wealth, because I believe they're going to make very incredible decisions given the financial opportunities. And that's where it's just the one thing they all said they would love is the discount. And so I feel like it's just finding the way that you can offer Bitcoin to people without directly offering them Bitcoin. And so that's one
Yeah.
of the things I love is Bitcoiners are all types of people. Like you said, they're dentists, they're lawyers, they're ecological restoration people. There's bankers, CPA, they're all over, and all these different ways are different positions of like jobs, if you will. Everyone can incorporate Bitcoin into it in some way, shape, or form. You just need to get creative in how you want to introduce it to people.
It's perfect. That's very much, aligned with my mission. Every time I go into one of these shows, I'm always thinking about, who could possibly see this for the first time, and that's their moment to become orange pilled and start researching Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's been great, great getting your perspective, and I think you bring a completely fresh voice and perspective to the space here. So I'm excited to see what the next 6 to 12 months look like for you and the
Yeah.
Bitcoin Stewardship Initiative. It's bullish.
I really appreciate it. We're trying to do for the planet what Satoshi's done for value. And
Mhm.
and that's that we're trying to go out and heal all the problems that we feel fiat has created and incentivized. And so
Yeah,
we have this incredible tool right here that anyone listening to the podcast, you're so early to adoption because you're beating 98% of the world still, and everybody needs it. It's not just an America problem. Every country in the world is losing value through their currency. And so you're not too late. Start saving, and then you can start doing the things that truly bring value to your life.
perfect note to end on.
I
Nice,
appreciate
Chris.
it.
Well, thanks again for being here, and let's make sure that everyone stays in touch with you. So your
Sure.
social. Oh, I love your link, your X handle, by the way. What is it? Sats to
Sats,
soil.
yeah, sats to soil. And so, yeah, it's our way of taking digital scarcity and creating ecological abundance. And so, yeah, you can follow me on there is at SATSTOSOIL. And then also we have a webpage that we just got up. We're going to be putting some more work into. That is btcstewardship.org. And so we'll be putting all of the projects that we do up there, as well as we start to get them. That way people have a place to go and start following along.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, thanks again for being here. And thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, listening, sharing the space. These are important conversations. There's a whole variety of Bitcoiners out there, like we talked about. So I appreciate each and every one of you listening in and sharing. We'll be back next week on Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking with Jonathan Sadlow from Signal 21 to do a little deep dive into what's happening in the Stacks ecosystem right now. So, all right, thanks again. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining us in the Leather Lounge. We record each episode live, and if you'd like to listen in or join us on stage, make sure to give us a follow on X at LeatherBTC. Leather is your gateway to everything Bitcoin, from DeFi to stacks, ordinals, runes, stamps, NFTs, and more. You can find loads of helpful crypto content on our YouTube channel and visit our blog and learn center at leather.io.